The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So get ready, nerds, because we're talking Foundation, Episode 2, Preparing to Live. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Salty Nerd Podcast for another episode of our breakdown of Foundation. This is going to be spoiler-free for you folks. And I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader74. What's up, dude?
Crazy show. Yeah, I'm here. Let's do this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wow, what an intro.
Yeah.
Jude is also here drinking her water. How you doing, Jude?
Fine.
She hates the show. It's hilarious. It's hilarious how much she hates it. And Matthew Kadish, producer of the show. Welcome, sir.
Unlike Jude, I actually really enjoy this show, and I'm looking forward to talking about the second episode. So, yeah, screw you.
I feel like this show's about to break up, Kadish.
This is the end.
We've got 8 more to go.
We got 8 years to go. 8 years to go of this.
So, this is going to be great. All right, everybody. For those of you who are not familiar with our setup, we're going to do the first 10 minutes. That's going to be completely spoiler-free, just our general thoughts on the episode. And then we're going to move into the members only. If you want to become a member and get the nitty-gritty spoiler stuff where we go full ham, unfiltered opinions on this TV show.
I'll tell you all the reasons why I hate it.
Jude will literally cut Kadish's head off. Go to saltynerdclub.com and join the club membership. There you get access to all of our exclusive content. That's going to be 4 episodes per month just for members only, including our huge 2 years worth of backlog content where it's members only stuff there as well. Discord app, members only access, all kinds of really cool stuff, live streams, Q&A sessions, a ton of things. So join the club membership and you get more of what you already love. Okay. All right. Before we do it, before we get into our non-spoiler review, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, everybody. All right, let's get into spoiler-free review of episode 2 of Foundation.
I don't know if I can.
It's going to be tough.
How do we do a non-spoiler review?
It's really pretty.
Some things happen, guys. It was really interesting. And
what are your general thoughts after everything that we saw in episode 1? What do you think of this episode?
Okay. Do you have a synopsis for episode 2? Do you want to go through or no?
Well, my synopsis is very detailed for the spoiler section.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So
we're on the way to the planet. Is that spoilery? I can't tell.
All right. So in this episode, we see the journey of the initial Foundation towards Terminus.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it non-light speed, so it's taking them 5 years to get there. This happens 6 months after the events of the first episode, and while the Foundation is traveling to Terminus back on Trantor, the Empire is trying to figure out who was behind the terrorist attack on the planet, and there's a lot of political intrigue going on, basically.
Yes. Okay, again, so similar to my thoughts on episode 1, this show exceeds in production quality. Like, it's so freaking cool looking. The ships, the environments, the characters themselves, the wardrobes, it's all very high sci-fi, highbrow. What did you call it? Highbrow sci-fi?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. The most intriguing part to me is actually not the stuff that's happening with the Foundation. It's actually what's happening with the Empire. Like watching them trying to figure out what happened with the destruction of the space elevator and like going through that motion of like the execution scene and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
and we get to see just how ruthless the Empire is in this episode.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
That was pretty
ruthless,
pretty intense.
pretty epic.
Yeah.
I'm in. So
yeah, for sure.
as somebody who is not familiar with the source material in any meaningful way, I am very interested in what's happening. And this episode really set in motion, especially with the ending, what like left me on a pretty big cliffhanger.
I'm more wondering why they chose to send the Foundation people to Terminus with subwarp technology when they could just snap their fingers and they all be there.
They literally want them to just out of sight, out of mind. And if I think what was the last episode we talked about them, like if this works,
because it was part of their punishment. It felt
yeah,
like.
yeah, it's definitely punishment.
There's more than 2 people on this ship. They're punishing.
There's a whole city worth.
Yeah, it's weird to me.
Yeah. There are hundreds of settlers for the first Foundation, and the reason that they're going subwarp is simply because the Empire just wants them out of the way, and so like they're just dragging it out as long as they possibly can because they just don't want to hear from them.
It's definitely a punishment.
Also, they need to figure out how they're going to live on Terminus, and this voyage gives them that time.
So, Jude, how much did you hate this episode?
So much.
Can you tell me why without spoiling it? Because I know you're a book person. You're a purist.
Yeah.
So what is it about this that really just kind of irks you?
Okay, I'm going to tell you everything, and you're going to have to bleep out all of my words.
Oh, no.
For it to not be a spoiler. No, there's just so many changes that, like, especially the end of this episode, I had a real WTF moment because none of that happens. Okay. And in fact, most of this does not happen in the first book. This is a lot of the relationships that they're building and character development that's going on. Like some of this is in the books, but in the prequels. So if you're like a book one purist, none of this happens in the book.
Okay, and that's what irks you about it?
Yeah, of course.
It did feel like just a lot more of character setup.
Well, this, yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
For sure. It's just, yeah. It's just like any new series that's planned for 8 years worth of episodes. We have to have a foundation for who these characters are.
Yeah.
And whether they're in the books or whether they're not or changed, we still have to have some setup.
It's going to be, it's definitely going to be tough for me to talk about this show in any meaningful way because I'm still getting to know these characters. Yeah. So I'm not going to have a reaction really to like, oh, I can't believe this person did this because I'm still like learning who they are.
It's like, okay.
There's there's definitely some moments in this episode where I was like, WTF, like why did that just happen?
Yeah.
So there is that, but on a whole, I'm still learning about this world that we're in. So, Kadish, what did you think about this episode?
So I really like this episode. This is another episode that I watched 5 times, and each time I watched it, I gained a new appreciation for discovering something that I hadn't seen in my previous watches. And there's a lot of stuff being laid in this episode for future storylines. And it also feeds into a theory of mine about Hari Seldon that I'm like pretty sure is accurate. And, we can talk about all that in the spoiler section. But for this episode, like episode 1 and episode 2 of this series are kind of prequels to the main story, which happens on Terminus. And I feel like the next episode is going to bring us back to like the Terminus timeline. And these 2 episodes were just kind of laying, no pun intended, the foundation for the story that we're about to get. Like Jude said, like a lot of the stuff, pretty much none of it was in the books. But that's one of the things I like about this show is that, at the end of the Psychohistorians, which is the first part of the first book, Seldon and his followers are banished to Terminus to set up the first foundation. And then in the next story, which is Salvor Hardin's first appearance, foundation's basically set up on Terminus, and we don't really know what happened. We know that Hari Seldon died between the first part of the story and the second part, and that Gail Dornick is never heard from again. And in between those two stories, about 50 years passes in the books, and so there's a lot of stuff that happened that is just up in the air,
lost in translation.
The book never really tells you. And so what this show is doing is it's filling in those gaps. And I like the way that they're doing it because I can see a plan forming that the main writers are kind of have and are following. And I'm interested to see if my theories are actually going to be right about this. But this story, so we mentioned in the previous episode that David Goyer's whole philosophy on this show is that it's a chess game between Hari Seldon and the Empire. And, it spans 1,000 years, and all the different characters are pawns in this massive galactic chess game. And through their actions, some of them get relegated to, up jump to kings and queens. And you can kind of see them setting the stage for this here, because there is a huge cliffhanger of an ending to this episode. And I have so much to say about that, so I just want to, move on to the spoiler section so we can start talking about it.
All right. So in general, I think 3 out of the 4 of us are on board. We're really interested. Vader, I'm surprised you are, because this is a slow burn for a show.
This was a little bit of a slow burn episode for sure.
Yeah.
The wow factor of the special effects and stuff are kind of,
still keeping you hooked.
Still keeping me hooked. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm not out, not even close to being out, but I feel Jude's pain. I'm feeling for her.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yeah. But I'm curious. I want to see where this goes. I'm taking the slow, methodical kind of approach to where I know we're in for a long haul here.
Yeah.
We got, like we said in the last episode, Matt said there's 8 years worth of stuff being planned here. So I can't just like go into this and go, oh, this sucks, because it might.
Barely scratching the surface.
But we're not even getting started here hardly yet. We're still learning who people are.
Yeah.
I will say, so the first episode, I hated so much. I anger watched it. This episode takes place in between part 1 and part 2 of the book, so I was a little bit more receptive to it. However, the first episode set up a lot of stuff that was inaccurate to the book, which just made me irate. So I still don't like it, but it's not an outright affront to the book, because none of this happened in the book, but it's between stories. So
they're allowed to take liberties.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
Some of it.
Okay. Well, Jude, die on that hill. That's your job for the duration of this season.
Mountain of Dicks.
Okay. Mountain of Dicks. All right. That's it for our spoiler-free review.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think it's worth watching? I mean, this episode was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And it left on a big cliffhanger. So I'm like waiting, but we can't talk about it too much because we got to do the spoiler stuff for the members only. Jude, I know you were more receptive to this episode than the first one.
I hated it less than the first one.
Okay. And Kadish, you're like theory crafting. You're all in.
I am all in.
Okay.
Like, I'm obsessed with this show now.
That's amazing.
I hate this episode less. I hate Kadish more.
What I love is the fact that we all have different, like I'm in between Kadish and Matt, where I'm like, I like the spectacle, and I'm also like really into the theory crafting and trying to figure out this thing. You're in between Jude and me. We were like, yeah, it's pretty, but also fuck you. Like there's moments of that.
Yeah,
so it's kind of funny.
I'm going to die on this hill alone.
Yeah, I love the dynamic that's happening right here.
I'm going to go read the book right now so I can be on this side of the table with Jude.
I know. We could just fight about it. All right.
You guys.
So if you want to see more people who are watching this episode, if you like this show, Foundation on Apple TV, and you want to hear our take, the heavy spoiler section where we can be completely raw and unfiltered and just get our thoughts out there, go to saltynerdclub.com, join the club membership. You get a ton of extra content, and this is where we are going to be doing the bulk of the reviewing of this TV show. So join up. It's a great community. It's a lot of value, and we would love to have your support.